All right. Good Saturday morning. Hope everyone's doing well here in the Northeast. We are getting pounded by snow. I'm looking out my window and it's a whiteout pretty much, and I can't see even the cars going by on my road if there are cars even going by. So hopefully the weather is better in your neck of the woods out there. But glad to be back. We took sort of a month hiatus with the holiday season and people's schedules, being tight. But we're back here. It's 2025, and I'm happy to be joined to my right on the top of the screen, Mr. Orlando, the collector's dream.
Happy New Year, everyone. If it's still okay to say Happy New Year.
Yeah, it is. I think I don't know what the shelf life is on that. If you haven't seen someone since the new year, I think you can
Right.
do it. And below us, only on the screen, Dr. James Beckett. Good morning, sir.
Hey, John. Hey, Orlando. Happy New Year for sure. We're still January. Resolutions are still in force.
Yeah, and me and Danny did some hobby ones last night. I'm not a big resolution guy, but there's some things I try to focus on and do a better job with. And we got some hellos coming on the screen this morning. This show, what we're going to do, gentlemen, is kind of go through 2024, the year that was. Go over some of the hobby headlines that made those hobby headlines, and kind of wrap them up, put a little bow on them, maybe talk about them in respect to how does it going into 2025, what that's going to mean. And as always, with the chat room guys, give your opinions. I'll share those comments on the screen, and then myself, Dr. Jim, and Orlando can even play off the individual comments as well too. So we're not going to someone's asking for the link, so let me put it in there before I forget. All right, there's the link, guys. It should be coming up. There you go. We're gonna go through these kind of quickly because we got like 10 or 11 of them, but definitely again going to play off these are in no particular order. And we can kind of put two together, right? We saw a lot of celebrity appearances and collabs in 2024, and it kind of goes along with the birth of Fanatics Fest, which took place in New York City. They had a couple other scheduled, Pittsburgh, Orlando, that didn't come to fruition, but they're scheduled for 2025 back in New York. So, is this good for the hobby, Dr. Jim? You've probably been around the longest in terms of length. Is this good or is it good and bad?
Where's the bad? Basically,
Yeah,
you got pro athletes, superstars, even getting involved in our hobby. So I don't, they're involved. They're giving kind of themselves. They're showing up. So they're not just doing autograph sessions behind a curtain. They're out walking the floor of the shows in some cases. So I think it's positive.
Orlando, you
Oh,
listen. You're in Florida. You were getting one in Orlando that never
yeah.
happened.
Yeah, I mean, but Dr. Jim is right. I mean, definitely positive. I mean, to have Gronk and players like that going around and talking and buying cards, literally buying their own cards, and just mingling with the audience and the regular people like us. I think that was huge. But yeah, you're right. The negative end of it was that they couldn't do it, repeat that other place other than New York so far. Now, hopefully, they will now with a little more time, but I think they just kind of rushed it and decided, hey, let's do this, let's do that, and they set the times, and then they couldn't fulfill it, couldn't make it as good. But like you said, it's going to happen again in 25. So let's look at that. And I think that they're going to make it as successful as the one in New York. They're not going to do a half-assed job. I think they realize that it's a big thing for the hobby.
Yeah, here's a comment from the Authentic Sports Card Dad. It says it's great. Fanatics Fest is back, and I expect it will be back in 26 with a multi-year commitment. And like you said, Orlando too, you know they pulled off the New York. They're scheduled again. It'll be interesting to see if some of the other cities can do it. I think some of it is financial and that sort of thing. Another comment from Tony. Tony says, hey, my hobby friends. Hello, Dr. Jim. Your 1992 signed card made his 2024 top fun prize. So there you go. That was the highlight for Tony in 2024. Good morning, Hodges, as well. See a couple comments like what happened in December. We just couldn't get, like, when it was come to scheduling, folks, we just couldn't get like a full staff to produce the shows between Hanukkah, Christmas, card shows that I was set up as a dealer, believe it or not. I just said, you know what? Let's take December off and hit the ground running in January. So here we are. I apologize. Hopefully that's a 1 year thing and not an annual thing. But that's why. Right? Just an explanation. There we go from Ken. Says the doctor is in. Yes, indeed. I agree. All right, guy. I don't know what else there really is to say with that topic. Let's kind of go to. Yeah, go ahead.
I do have one more thing to say. I was an early attendee at the Comic Cons because we were doing some non-sport stuff, and the Comic Con is a huge phenomenon, but it's most closely associated with San Diego. There are other locations, but it was many years before the Comic Con embraced other venues, other locations. It was synonymous with San Diego for so many years, a certain weekend of the year. Guys, I am not hoping that Orlando, not the person, but Orlando, the city, or Pittsburgh come along until Fanatics is ready. And I'd like to see them do a few more Javits because I think that's where they're going to get the maximum bang. Lots of bucks, but they're going to get a lot of attention from major media being there. I'd like to see them perfect that before they go to, because Orlando is a wonderful city, but they were not ready. They were not prepared. And to come off half-cocked in either of those other locations would have been bad. So I'd like to see them get a good run in the Javits Center for a few years and have people saying, you've got to bring this to our city before right now. They can't replicate New York City, Manhattan in Orlando. It's a completely different vibe. So I'd like to see them give it a few more years and make it like the Comic Con where you're just thinking, I've got to be there. And they're not quite there yet.
So if I heard you right, Dr. Jim, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you really don't want them to rush it into other cities. You want it to get it down to the science.
They've come to that same decision. It's not a money maker for them. It's a promotional thing. It's going to be good for the hobby, but it's not a promotional benefit unless it's super well done. They've had some, middle management at least, if not leadership changes, and probably some philosophical differences of how to do this new kind of show, which for a while it might be unique to New York City. Then that's okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let me mess. I know people are saying we're too small. That's just we can go back. Here we go. We're a little bit bigger. We got rid of the 63 tops circles there. So. We can see more of Dr. Jim's card collection. That's all that was about from the comments. People are like, we're not seeing enough awesome cards.
All you care about is the Leaf Jackie. It's still visible.
Well, I got one, but if you ever want, I would gladly
right next to my left ear.
I would gladly trade mine for yours, blind trade. I know yours is a little bit in better shape than mine. All right, guys.
But that was a great comparison with the Comic Con and Fan Fest, because I think that those are the events that really boost the hobby. And look what's happened with the Comic Con. I mean, it's a worldwide event, and I think that Fanatics can become that.
There we go. Adam says to not see Dr. Beckett's Great Wall is and I agree. So you got the Great Wall of China, you got the Great Wall of Dr. Beckett. So probably 1 and 1A in the grand scheme.
I've been to the Great Wall of China, and it's thousands of miles long and much more formidable.
There you go. All right, next story we're gonna cover here, guys. This made the news, was prominently displayed at the National. The Babe Ruth called shot jersey wound up selling in the end for $24.1 million on Heritage auctions, the highest ever for a jersey and sports memorabilia sale. It's obviously if it's the actual jersey, which I know some people sort of called into question on their side of things, but assuming it is, I mean, it's a great piece of history. I don't, I don't think the owner or the buyer was named or came forward. If they did, I missed it. But kind of thoughts on this item and just the auctions. I guess some of the crazy auctions we've seen in 2024, which will obviously continue into 2025.
Yeah, it's been, I think, a big year for memorabilia. Not just the Ruth jersey, but there's been a lot of other stuff like Jordan sneakers that went for millions of dollars. I mean, look at the shoes, Dorothy's shoes in the Wizard of Oz that went for what, over 30 something, $32 million. And it looks like there was also the original photograph of Mickey Mantle in, with the 51 Bowman that went for, I think, eight or $900,000. So there's a lot of money, I think, this past year that went into memorabilia, big money in memorabilia.
Yeah, I mean, we said a few years ago that why are you paying millions of dollars for a tiny swatch on
Right.
a 2.5 by 3.5 card when you could buy the whole jersey? Well, now you can't buy the whole jersey. But to me, I just somebody wanted it to pay that much, so that makes these very, very unique items. And the photo matching, Ruth had at least two jerseys every year. He had a backup, and so it could be contemporaneously photo match, but photo match to the game. It's an inexact science. And as far as ruby red slippers, I had a friend that owned the ruby red slippers.
Wow.
Newsflash: there's more than one pair.
Yes.
From the movie?
From the
Yeah.
movie, they had a backup pair, at least one backup pair.
They say there's
Wow.
3 pairs out there, but this was the first
At
one
least
that
two
she
and probably
wore or something.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's
It's
there's
crazy.
there's foot stains inside the slippers. Whatever. I mean, it's just anything
There's
that
Judy.
it
There's
proves.
Judy Garland DNA.
It proves what it proves is increasingly the power of the story.
Right.
Jordan left feet or whatever they were, they were half a pair.
Yeah.
It was for huge bucks. The other jersey that was in Babe Ruth's locker when he didn't wear it to the called shot is still a multi-million dollar budget, but 2 million, not 24 million.
Yeah.
So subtle differences. The story really matters.
The story matters, and yes, and provenance. Look at the mantle card. Not this year, that sold for 12.5 million because it came from Mr. Mint, and he said so. Just because of that, I think that sold for just much more because of the story and the provenance.
Story and provenance. Good point, Orlando. That's very, very true.
Well, here's a dilemma or a question. Let's say it comes out that jersey, the one that went for $24 million, the real jersey, if it's not the real jersey, so the real jersey comes to light that this is the called shot jersey. Can the buyer of the $24 million jersey go back to Heritage and say, "Listen, I bid on that, assuming that was the one. Now it's come to light it's not." Does he or she have any recourse, or is that all sales final type deal?
We had a similar controversy this year with the bases from was it Hank Aaron bases, where there was, I
Right.
guess, a duplicate second base. They were trying to sell all the bases, so it's just very inexact science at this point, and who has what? You've got to prove it somewhere somehow. So I don't know. Those
No,
are great questions.
guys, it's not criminal. It's not a criminal case. It could be a civil lawsuit that somebody could bring, and anybody can bring. In America, you can bring a civil lawsuit that I was defrauded. But I promise you, Heritage has been doing this a really long time. They started with coins, which are even bigger bucks. They have their legalese down to a science. And so they've made best efforts to authenticate it, but they are not giving it. And even if there's no such thing as an ironclad guarantee,
Right.
For something that's that old. And so who's to say this other one isn't, it's just, I don't think you'd get anywhere. I don't think you get anywhere. So, but I
So
wouldn't.
it's
Heritage.
caveat emptor. It's caveat emptor.
It is. That's written all over this industry.
Yep. What is that?
You can't cheat. You can't lie. They didn't cheat. They didn't lie. They didn't steal. So they didn't commit any crimes.
Right.
So if the jersey that he wore is 24 million, what's the one that was at the stadium in the locker, the backup one? What's the value on that?
It's millions, but it's not 24 millions.
All right. It'll be interesting to see if that ever comes to light, if it still exists and someone has it and they can prove it, that's that sort of thing. Vintage Card Collector says he believes there are 5 pairs of the ruby red slippers. The pair sold on Heritage were stolen from the museum in Minnesota. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, they were stolen and they were found. Yeah, I heard that. I read that story.
So the museum is like okay with them being sold. I mean, if it was,
well, they were on loan to the museum, and then they were stolen, and I think they were lost for somewhere around 10 years or so before they were finally recovered. That particular pair.
Well, my buddy had his 30 years ago, so he's not a suspect.
There you go. All right, guys, kind of moving. While we're talking about shows, not too long ago. The National under new leadership, first foray this year in Cleveland. There were hiccups. There are always going to be hiccups, as I always say. It's not a perfect game. No one's going to pitch a perfect national. The 25 national is going to be in Chicago. Actually, the next 3 are going to all be in Chicago. Doctor, we'll start with you, Dr. Jim. You've been to every national, so I think you can speak to this on the most. Thoughts on the first one under the new leadership in Cleveland, and then even going forward, what we might see. I know there's some new rules and new wrinkles and a little bit of expansion, more dealer tables and that sort of thing. But from someone who's seen every single one of them, kind of your thoughts on what we saw with the new group.
Well, compared to the next 3 years in Chicago, Cleveland was a very unique experience. I guess we were there. We saw there were unusual circumstances, an unusually large crowd. It was bringing back a facility that had been literally decommissioned and then brought back, and traffic flow had been greatly underestimated. And so some of those things maybe they should have anticipated, but they didn't get high marks. And a lot of that was associated with Cleveland. In Chicago, they really need to hit their stride, and I believe they will. Chicago's tried and true. The facilities there are just I really have high hopes for these next 3, and really the first one. I think this 2025 National is going to set another new record, and I think these guys are up to the task. So I love John Brogy. Mike Burkus was a close personal friend. I mean, they got the thing going, but I'm hopeful that Joe and Jimmy and Brian can really hit a home run, grand slam home run this year. Cleveland was not a grand slam because of these circumstances.
We can't.
Orlando,
okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree completely. Cleveland, the location really was the main problem. I think the in and out of that place was just ridiculous, and we can go on and on with the bathrooms and stuff. But the bottom line, I think, is Chicago is going to fix everything. Just the location alone is just so much more convenient. I think it's going to be much bigger than Cleveland. I mean, just by listening to everybody and all the hobby talk and all the YouTube talk and everything like that, already the hotels are booked from everywhere around there. So I think it's going to be much, much bigger. I think this is, the hobby, in my opinion, is stronger than it's ever been. Even back when, you had the COVID stuff. I think this is really, the collectors are really more than just, yeah, we have the breakers, we have all that stuff, but I think there's going to be more collectors than ever. And I think it's going to be the biggest test. Like Dr. Jim said, this is going to be it. I mean, they really have to put out a full force effort to make this one the best one ever. And I'm hoping to see what they do with the layout of the place. And, they're adding more tables and more dealers. So, that's going to be a big test. And I hope that they do some type of app or something where when you're in there, you can figure out where are these dealers, some type of interactive map or something like that. I think we need something other than just having the signs up in the roof saying, aisle, whatever.
Yeah. Tony says, let's just hope AC and Wi-Fi works in Chicago. AC is key. Quick food is also important for us with kids. Yeah, the Wi-Fi thing seems to be kind of an annual issue, just different levels to how bad or not bad it is. I'd like to see that. I know talking to fellow dealers, I don't set up there, but talking to some of the dealers, there's been some lost sales or sometimes where they've had to leave their booth and go outside to complete a sale. Luckily, they've had someone who could watch their table or an associate or partner who could stay back while that sale is completed. So from a dealer aspect, hopefully that gets worked out. I know Chicago is like everyone's favorite. I like the venue. The only complaint I have, and it's a selfish one, is I have to fly. So it costs me a little bit more money. I have to take a little less stuff, if you will. But there's worse things in life, right? Than that. I like to see it move around, though, guys. I know Chicago's a great venue and probably everyone's consensus number one pick. I mean, do you think we're going to see it kind of make the circuit again, or is it going to be heavy Chicago with a one-off every now and then?
Let me speak to that. Basically, here are two scenarios. One that plays to what you're saying, John, and the other goes the other way. I think it's very possible that the 25 National will set a new record because, as Orlando said, I think the hobby is as hot as it's ever been. And people know that it's tried and true. Okay, here's the issue, John. If the 26 National is even bigger in Chicago, if the 27 National is even bigger, another new record attendance, you're going to find that Chicago is going to always be the National if it sets 3 new records. Now, on the other hand, if the 25 National sets the high point and for any reason 26 is a drop off or 27 is a slight perceptible drop off, then yeah, you're going to go all around the country. But it's very likely that the next 3 years could be the best 3 years ever of the National. Yeah. And that is going to be arguing against what I think it's good for the industry that we have a strong National. Secondarily, I think it's good that it moves around the country.
So if I heard you real quick, sorry. So you say if the next 3 Nationals, if each one sort of tops the one before it, it's just going to stay in Chicago, Dr. Jim?
Would you vote to put it somewhere else? So that's a possibility.
I would vote to put it in Syracuse, but there would only be one vote for that.
Okay.
I get it. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'll pull all the strings I can. I know a couple guys around that facility. So, but all joking aside, so there's a chance Chicago may just become home of the National.
Yeah.
If that scenario happened, it'd be hard to vote against it. It's a sure thing, and you realize that it's less work, a lot less work for the promoters, for the committee. They have a tried and true to they spend a lot of time scoping out Atlanta, which has had a couple nationals and they weren't great. But this is many years later. But you got a bird in the hand, a very, very sure thing. So it'd be hard
Orlando, I cut you off, Orlando. So go ahead. I'm sorry, my bad.
Oh no, exactly. I think you stick with the winner. If that's the place that is successful, you got to stick with it until it slacks off.
Remember, it's the dealers that vote.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's
they're
get this.
making more money than ever. They're not going to leave. They want to stay there. They don't want to test something out that they may have to lug all their stuff out to Atlanta or to Orlando or to Dallas, where they know it's successful. Why change it? But you know what? I do like it there in Chicago, and I think I wouldn't have a problem making it semi-permanent there. Maybe every, I don't know, 5 years change it. But I like it in Chicago. I think it's the perfect location.
All right, some comments. We'll get to some comments on this topic. Vintage Card Collector says National will be lit, as the kids say. Logan chimes in here. He says next 3 years of the National are going to be epic. I wish they would just make Chicago. So Logan says, hey, let's just keep it in Chicago. Bo says Wi-Fi will be spotty and it's going to be hot. Set your clocks to it. And but Logan says, hey, it's 2025. For God's sakes, Wi-Fi should not be an issue. Tony says, yes, John, I like when it comes around. John Brogy says, y'all are spoiled. I remember having to go to the lobby at the Westchester County Center to process credit cards ordered. I remember credit cards when you'd have to run it through the machine with the carbon copy and slide the bar across the top. And here's an interesting comment. Guys, Hobby may have outgrown Rosemont. I don't know yet, but maybe the potential is there. And I want to get to this topic comment too. White Sox Tom says, I guess the National will never be on the West Coast again, and they forget card collecting exists. Go ahead.
Here's the scenario. Again, Rob Veras, the Burbank show, which has become the West Coast almost national. They start pulling six-figure attendance over a West Coast show, they will get serious attention for national consideration if they want it. But Rob is now closely aligned in his business with Fanatics. If Fanatics said, you know what, we support Rob, he's already drawn 100,000 for a regional show. We think he can draw, with our help, 200,000, in Anaheim Convention Center, wherever it would be. That would get serious consideration. And it should.
Bo says, hey, it's already outgrown all the current venues, most likely cost prohibitive to move it to a much larger venue than Rosemont. I don't know how many of those exist. I'm sure there are, and where they are, I don't know.
But guys,
Rex?
Yeah, but large, we don't need more dealers. We need probably some improvement in the dealers. But we don't need more dealer booths. We maybe a reconfiguration. And so basically for the National to get bigger, to get 50% bigger, we don't need 50% more booths. It's hard enough to see every booth when you're there. Okay. But more customers, who wouldn't be in favor of that? And if it's a little bit more crowded, as long as it's not fire marshal prohibitive, then bring them on. Bring on more customers with big fat wallets.
Good point by Rex here, guys. He says, I believe the promoters have a better chance of enhancing and improving the National when it's in the same place every year. I agree with that. While I don't necessarily want to see it in the same place every year all the time, that's a great point, right? If it is, it's easier to make improvements and figure out what you want to do from one year to next year when you're dealing with the same four walls, right? If you're moving every year, it gets difficult. Tony says, if it stays in Chicago, at least we will have the National Light 3 times per year, aka the Philly show. Papa Jim Carruthers, Happy New Year, gentlemen. How far out would the committee have to look to make a decision on a new national location. I'll let Dr. Jim answer this one. It was my knowledge it's at least 2 to 3 years before they can
Oh,
change
but
their
see,
venue.
the vote will be in Chicago for the location that is put forth for 2028. And so it's the dealers that are at that show will vote at the show, on the Saturday morning or whatever it is, for where they're going to already know this was a great show. And if Chicago is one of the choices, they're already there, bird in the hand. But yeah, I think they're 3 years out.
Another great comment, and this is from someone who knows, right? Mr. Broggi says, from intimate experience, Rosemont is the easiest building
Right.
to run the national at. Richard says, "Hey guys, I'm from Cleveland. I've been to every Cleveland show as well, a few Chicago ones. I like Chicago, but Cleveland can likely improve on the last one. They didn't even use the full site. I think with Cleveland, they need some hotels closer to the IX Center, and I've heard that's a possibility that may occur." Dr. Jim,
There's zoning issues, John. I mean, basically,
okay,
you're not allowed to. Hotels. There's zoning restrictions for being too close to the way that's zoned. It's weird. You have to drive in a big circle to get around things. The problem is they don't have good roads. This is infrastructure, not hotels. There's plenty of hotels. They're just 2 miles away. There are not enough roads.
Yeah.
There's only one road in and one road out, or two roads in and two roads out, and that you could just have a drone fly over and see if there's no new roads. I am not going back to Cleveland. You need more than twice as many roads, not more shuttles, but more roads.
Yeah, vintage car class. I've heard this too. I'm sure we all have. Nationals never going back to Cleveland, which is kind of sad because it's drivable for me. But it is what it is, right? It's 2025. I can get there. Most likely, it's just the cost. Our very own Chris Harris makes a comment. We'll kind of close this topic out with this one. Chris says, if it's in the same city every year, is it really a national? I mean, I get what he's saying, but it's still the national. What I just don't want to see is more than one national per year. Just have one wherever it is. If it's the same city, when I think it's not the nationals, when they start adding, when we've heard rumors in years past, hey, about adding a second national, have 2 a year, then I think the bloom comes off the rose. But if you're having one, it's called the national. It doesn't necessarily, like where it is doesn't really bother me as much as if they just added a national to a national in the same calendar year. So that's my take. Your last thoughts here, guys, on this topic?
Everybody's got an opinion, John, and and many of the opinions are self-serving. And the problem with the self-serving opinions is that the vote for where it's going to be is done by the people who are in Chicago, who are already thinking, hey, I'm having a good show in Chicago. So on the other hand, if we hadn't been to Cleveland, then there was a mirage of a person named Mookie Chilson that I discovered was a real person by waiting for such a long time to get off the property. I wasn't accosted, but I strategically bumped into him and found out that he is not a myth. He is a reality, just like I am not a myth. I am a reality.
Well, you're not a myth. You're a man. They say man, the myth, the legend. Take the myth out. If the other two are still correct, though. All right, guys. We can talk, and we can probably do a whole show when it comes to national talk because people love it, right? It's the Super Bowl. The hobby is. I don't know if I'm the first one, but I coined it that. But 2024, right? And this is not a new story per se. It happens every year, but it really seemed to really ramp up, right? We saw more thefts between burglaries of stores, the $2 million card robbery in Dr. Jim's backyard with Ash. And I think even some of the burglaries, ramped up. We had, the bullpen. It was during opening hours, and they zip tied the person running the store and put him in the back of the store. And so it's scary as a former LCS owner myself. this, I hate to see these because you work hard to build your business and acquire your inventory, and someone, whether it's daytime or nighttime, bust in and takes your hard earned inventory. You know, it's obviously going to continue. Unfortunately, there's no magic pill here. But are we going to see anything maybe to curb this? I know a lot of the stores now, guys, are going to shatterproof glass. That's a little bit obviously of a deterrent, but you got to have insurance, obviously. But I think with all these burglaries, what happens to insurance, right? Insurance goes up. Kias get robbed, and if you own a Kia, your insurance is going to cost more money. We don't spend a lot of time on this topic per se, but just some of you owned a store as well, Dr. Jim, back in the day. Just how do we make this less of a story? Maybe is the question, or can we?
Well, I think most criminals still are rational. And what we've learned this year is the probability of getting caught is way less than 100% if you commit one of these crimes. And so I think some of these they're not crimes of opportunity as much as they're planned. There's some they're following people, and I think it's terrible. And if we get the chances of getting away are 1% instead of the perception is I think it's 50%. We don't the thefts continue, but I'm not hearing about the convictions and the punishments. The one guy in Strongsville got put in jail for 4 to 6 years, but that's because he won't disclose where the other two cards are. Other than that, you wonder if his sentence will be greatly reduced if he makes restitution. And so I don't know what's going on there, but like you said, Ash's cards or the cards that he was holding that got walked out in broad daylight. We need an arrest and a conviction on that, so that and an example so that crime does not pay. Because right now there's a perception. Luka Doncic got his house was broken into last week, and he doesn't live that far away from me. And they took a 5-figure heist, or that's what's reported. Again, I'm not hearing that so and so was arrested and tortured. They're getting away with it. That's the bad news.
Yeah, Rex, who's we're on the big screens at both the store, right? He was burglarized this past year, and I think one time before that. Not to bring up, bad memories. Thankfully, our alarm systems, riot glass, and the local police all worked as they should. The criminals were caught. But Dr. Jim makes the point that basically, I echo that. We need to have tougher penalties as deterrents, right? I'm a teaching assistant, right? If a kid makes a mistake and we have to some kind of punishment, right? If the punishment isn't severe, it doesn't deter another kid necessarily from doing it. You hope it doesn't happen, excuse me, in the first place. But when it does, right, we need to have, specifically too with theft and burglary and robberies, we need stiffer penalties to again send a message to burgeoning criminals like this is what you're facing if you get caught. And until that happens, I hate to agree with I don't mind agreeing with you, Dr. Jim, but unfortunately, I think you're right. I think this continues until that ever occurs.
I was kidding about the torture.
I'm on the borderline, but you were kidding. I'm like at some point. No, I'm kidding too. But we gotta have some sort of stiffer, penalties and that sort of thing. Otherwise, this will just be an annual thing. Go ahead, Orlando.
Yeah, they really have to. The police needs to really step up their game and at least give us some updates on what's happening with some of these bigger cases. And I think that dealers, they're going to have to set some cameras up themselves in their booths, even if they just put a cell phone there or something, because you can't just depend on the security. I know the security is going to be better than ever. They always say they're going to have cameras. But what's happening that I've noticed is as the hobby grows and becomes more popular, more of these criminals are seeing the big dollars that are in these cards. And these crimes are now planned out. It's not like, one guy just deciding to go do something. These things are well planned with 2, 3, 4
It's
guys in
like
some
Ocean's
cases.
11. It's like
Yeah,
Ocean's
and
11.
now, I mean, they're getting some of these dealers, when they go outside to their car, or even scarier, following them to a restaurant. I mean, you imagine following, they'll follow these dealers to their house or to their wherever. That's really, I think, the scariest thing. Not just taking some cards. And yeah, it's a physical thing, and you lose the cards and whatever, but you can physically get harmed or killed or something over cards. And I think that's the real scary part of it. So I think we have to really be more careful ourselves, as collectors and as dealers, do our part to protect ourselves and our property. But it's just getting scarier and scarier, because it's not just a one-off. It's just, like I said, Ocean's 11 type things.
Now you guys are realizing why I make a big deal about being a dollar box guy. I am immune. Nobody's gonna follow me because they're gonna get a hernia trying to carry my box away of my dollar box cards, and they're gonna get frustrated.
Well, you better watch out for the dollar box gang. That's what you need to
Okay.
watch out for.
Singles Club wants to get their cards back.
So,
Watch
real
out for John
one.
Klein.
Yeah. One last comment. I do a monthly show in Watertown, New York, which is about an hour north of here. It's a small show, 45, 50 tables. And that promoter has put, and this is a small show, guys, has put cameras all around the room and on his promoter table. And he's got video coverage all over the place. And that's a small show, right? And so that's where we are here in 2024, 2025. So I just thought I'd throw that in there just to kind of close out the segment. All right, let's move on to it's not necessarily a hobby story directly, but in a sense it is, guys. Ohtani, first 50-50 player. I don't know if we'll ever see that again, and if we do, it might be him that does it again. It really obviously impact the hobby. Obviously his stuff zoomed up. He's already a popular player before the 50-50 even happened. But it really brought more attention, I think, to talking about celebrity appearances. I think this record even brought more attention to the hobby. More people started to, hey, I got to get some Ohtani cards. I know he didn't pitch this year, but he is a dual purpose player. He will pitch reportedly next year for the Dodgers. Drawing the comparisons to Babe Ruth, and I can make the comparisons that, bar an injury, he may be, as crazy as it sounds, if he pitches every year and hits like he's capable of doing, he may be a better player. And it's hard to compare players from different eras. I get that. But he's, that Babe Ruth talk might not even be viable anymore. It may have surpassed that level. So, your thoughts on this achievement and the impact it had on the hobby, guys.
Well, I wouldn't compare him to Babe Ruth yet, of course. He's still got a ways to go. But I do think that, of course, Ohtani has become really him, Judge have become and Skeens, really the face of baseball. I mean, look at the ball, the Ohtani ball, over $4 million. We talked about memorabilia. I didn't mention the Ohtani ball. Tops now. It was, I think, with the biggest. What did they sell? Almost 700,000 cards that they printed of the Otani, and I think that
it's
was
a
huge.
short print now.
Yeah, it was huge for short. But all that. We talked earlier that the Tops now has become huge for them with the Otani, with the basketball, the basketball team with that 1 of 1, and that really has boosted the hobby. But I think the Ohtani himself, has become just a worldwide star.
Yeah, no doubt.
You want me to weigh in? Basically,
Yeah, go ahead.
balls are not photogenic. They are all look the same. And so I think the ball is a massive overpayment. It's displayed on the 90th floor of a Taiwan tower, I think, and that's great for publicity for a short period of time. But I think it's I can see the display ability of a jersey, a vintage jersey, a ball. All balls look the same. You put it on your mantle. Oh,
Yeah.
that's the ball. I just don't think that. The other comparison to Babe Ruth, I think if we look at what happened to Babe Ruth, he only pitched for a few years, and then he was moved to full time in the outfield. That's what's happening to Ohtani. And so Ohtani, I think, is going to have difficulty doing both. And because even though Babe Ruth was a great pitcher, he was so valuable in the field, they didn't want to mess it up. And so, because they could have pitched, maybe, I'm just saying. So the comparison to Babe Ruth is apt, but I don't think Ohtani's going to hit 714 home runs. I don't think is going to hit more home runs than the whole rest of the league hit, which I think he did in 1919 or 1920.
Right.
I mean, Babe Ruth is so iconic, but
Yeah.
Ohtani stands as just this amazing, super talented guy right now that has probably all of Asia rooting for him and most of the West Coast. And, it's like we said, it's a great story. Even to be compared favorably to Babe Ruth is it puts interest in Babe Ruth. But that ball, I think it was drastically overpaid. And because John, he could break his own record. He is the most logical person to break his own record. The stolen base.
No one's going to be 60-60, Ohtani included. I think there's no way that would be.
Well, this is like a parlay. Okay. He's got to do two things. If we bet, can he steal more than 60 bases? I say yes. Can he hit more than home runs? I say yes. Can he do them both in the same season? It's unlikely, but it's possible. So a lot of the guys can steal 60 bases. Very few can hit 60.
Mookie thinks he's going to be a closer. That's an interesting concept.
Okay.
Maybe,
save the wear and tear instead of going 6 or 7 innings, come in for one and shut the door and rack up a bunch of saves that way. That's, he's probably half kidding, but there's some truth potentially.
He's definitely a generational player. I mean, this is the type of player we see once in a lifetime,
And real quick, guys, I know Foul Five Ball is going nuts in the chat room. I'm going to make one statement about this. It's going to be brief, and then we're going to move on, right? So, Drew Herndon's no longer been affiliated with Hobby Hotline for some months now. I know there's some alleged accusations that he, took some cards that weren't his. That is his business. If he's guilty, I hope like we just talked about people who steal, right? We need to get the penalties. I don't care who you are. If my son does something bad, he's got to face the music, right? So I'll say the same thing here. But I'm not aware of it. I'm not involved in this. No one on the screen is involved with this. No one in Hobby Hotline is involved in this. So I'll just say this. If it's true, let the chips fall where they may and penalties be what they need to be. And I hope whoever had their cards taken, Jared Landrus, gets them back and we have some sort of happy ending. But that's all I'm going to say. I'm not Drew's lawyer. I don't even have any kind of interaction with him at this point. So I can't really comment any further than that. Ask Drew, ask Jared Landrus is all I got to say. But I think I went on probably more than I should have. But that's all I'm going to say. All right, guys. Let's get into our next subject. This is a huge one. The debut patches made their debut this year, and bounties, which bounties aren't really a new thing, but bounties really came to the forefront. Because of the one-on-ones of these major league debut patches. And I will say this, I can be critical of Fanatics at times. Well, one thing I will give them credit for, I don't have any, obviously, but I love the concept of the Major League debut patches. I think it's a great chase card. I think it's a part of history. We see all the stuff going on with Panini and using jerseys of maybe not the player depicted on the card and all that sort of controversy. These debut patches come right from that player's first game. And, like Skeens is the big one. It hasn't come to light yet. If Skeens has a Hall of Fame career, imagine what that card is probably a seven-figure card for sure. Uh, some might argue it could be already. I don't think so, but you know, thoughts on bounties and these debut patches and kind of where the hobby's going as we, technology and innovation gets better.
Me, I love the bounties, and I think that it should continue. I think it's helping the hobby, especially, I'm not a breaker, but it does help a lot of the breaking, and that is a big part of the hobby. And I think the MLB patches, that those cards are just going to be iconic. I think the best idea that Fanatics or Tops has come up with, I think, are those MLB debut patches. And I think that's going to be the future. I think they're going to continue those on for many, many years. And people are going to look back at these first years, and they're going to be very, very desirable, I think, in the future. I mean, you got players that people won't recognize, but the key players, the popular ones, I think those are, going to be very similar to the basketball, like LeBron, what do we call those? The logo man.
And for the first time, guys, to my knowledge, I'll let you know, we had with the Pirates actually getting in on this bounty and offering up, a reward basically if they could get the Skeens debut patch. Offering like season tickets, suites. Livy Dunn even threw in, you can sit next to her. You can meet Paul Skeens. You get some on, the list went on and on. So now we're seeing like major league or professional sports organizations, get in on the bounties and get involved in this card. I echo what you said, Orlando. I think it's the best ingenuity or Fanatics has came up with since acquiring the Topps brand. And like you said, I think it'll be an every year thing. Make the bloom come off the rose a little bit, as because it's not a new thing anymore. Sure, but it's still, you pull a one-on-one major. I don't even care who it is. That's going to be a pretty cool pull. Breaker pulls it, as they're going to make a lot of noise and say "Let's go" and woohoo and all that stuff. Dr. Jim, I'll
Three things,
you.
guys.
Do you have, first off, my one question I want to start is the Skeens one-on-one debut patch behind you on that wall, and you just haven't told anybody yet?
I am a longtime Pirate fan, but no, I'm not. I'm not ripping wax to try to get there. Let me make 2 points. Okay, number one, you guys are focusing too much on debut. The focus really here, I think, long term is going to be patches. The fact that they now have removable patches that they can put. There'll be all-star patches. There could be birthday patches. There could be any number of things, because the hobby is known for beating a dead horse. And so there will be additional patches. That's number one. Number two is we have now seen, because of some uproar, that patches, debut patches, bounties, and other kinds of bounties are going to be increasingly time delimited. In other words, you've got 3 months to claim the bounty. It can't, for accounting purposes, you can't have a bounty that's everlasting. That's you can't close your books on the year with you having this outside thing. So I think all bounties will have time limits, and they need to be short. And that dovetails into the number 3 thing, is that along with the CT scanning means product is intended to be opened sooner. If the bounty is only good for 3 months or 6 months, you need to open that stuff in 3 to 6 months. And that eliminates some of this chance that you've got this, that something's been CT scanned and you know what's in there. Okay, just get the product and open it.
How crazy is that with this CAT scanning on some of this, these higher level products that you can see what's in there without even taking the cellophane off?
Yeah,
It's a good segue.
that's
Thank
one
you,
of
Doctor J.
that's
Uh,
probably the
It's,
biggest story of the year, actually.
well, if you, I'm
and
just that they could find out that the Skeens one of one debut patch is in there. But then, like I said, if there needs to be no advantage to holding unopened product, and I don't think there is anymore. In fact, there's a fear factor that when I go to sell it, so open the product. That's we are collectors of cards. It's okay if somebody wants to collect unopened packs and have a display like that, unopened cases, boxes, whatever. You can do that, but now there's a financial disincentive to holding on to unopened stuff. And I think the bounty limit of 3 months or 6 months gives you ample opportunity to, Fanatics, Panini, Upper Deck, they're producing products, so it'll be opened and sold and traded and it's exciting to open product. It's not exciting to say, hey, I've got 5 unopened cases in my basement.
well, it depends what those cases are, but I
Right.
agree with you. For
Higher end they are, the more nervous you're going to be.
yeah. Well, I think like if you're sitting, I know I'll use one product that just came, the Gretzky rookie case, right? That was sold and it wasn't sold and it was relisted and then resold. That's not a CAT scan's not going to really find, plus we know there's Gretzky rookies in there. It's
No,
not,
no, no, no,
it's,
no, no, no. That's not true. There are 2 Gretzky rookies in some of the boxes and one
yeah,
Gretzky rookie in some of the boxes. You could use the CT scanner to open up the case, which again, the uniqueness is it's an unopened case, but it has been opened and then
yeah,
resealed by Baseball Card
okay.
Exchange. And so somebody they could reopen it and look at each individual box and say, I'm going to sell the ones that have one because I've got 2 lottery tickets. If I've got 2 Gretzky's in there and I've got one, so they're twice as good. So this is scary, guys. This is scary
I
because
know it's,
criminals are more sophisticated than I am. They're thinking, how do you beat the system?
it's fun. When this story broke, it just blew my mind that a piece of medical imaging technology used in the health field has serving this purpose now to, you know, do illicit stuff in the hobby. It's just crazy, and it just brings, like you said, Doctor Jim, that distrust level, right? Like, who do I buy from? Do I trust that they haven't done this? There's a rumor that there's a big, a big wax dealer that has utilized this. I hope it's not true. It's a rumor. It's alleged, but it's crazy. And if you own a medical facility and collect cards, there's a place in Connecticut now that charges you 75, like they're advertising, $75 a box to utilize the technology. It's not even hidden anymore. It's not behind the shit, not in the shadows even anymore. Just crazy that this is a story, but that's where we are. And it's a great point, Dr. Jim, that you have to find a wax source that you trust and open it quick. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not packs as much as it's boxes. It's not
Yeah,
boxes as much as it's cases. The case quantity is the problem here because it doesn't cost any more to CT scan the case as opposed to a box, as opposed to a pack. And so it's against the counter instinct that we have of don't buy packs, don't buy box. You might get the bad box, buy the whole case, then you're guaranteed to get the case hit. It throws that upside down. But again, just the cards need to be opened. And when they're opened, if you're holding wax, you got to be thinking about opening because people are going to presume they're not going to pay you as much because they're going to think it's been searched. So open it and sell the contents.
can you imagine someone scanning a Topps box and they see the skeins 1-to-1 and they don't even open it and they just list the box as, hey, it's in here, we guarantee it. Whether you want to pay and open it, that's that's your prerogative. But this is the box. We found it, and it's not even open yet. It hasn't seen the light of day. And imagine how crazy even something like that potentially happen. Let's say you take that Connecticut firm up and you bring your Tops box and you pay your $75, and sure enough, that card's in there. And now you can say, hey, I guarantee it. I'm not opening it. Do you want to buy
I'm
it?
opening it.
You got to open it, John. You can't.
Yeah.
And no, I agree. But here's another dilemma question. Knowing that's the fact, or assuming that's the fact, would an auction house, Heritage, won't name the auction house, take that and on consignment? Could they do that?
Guys, Paul Skeens could have an accident. He could have an injury that's worse than Tommy John surgery. He could have some horrible thing, and I hope that doesn't happen for the sake of baseball, for the Pirates, for him, for his girlfriend. But right now he's riding high, a lot of sizzle. He's performed, but he's a young guy. There's a lot of is he better than what Steven Strasburg was coming up? I don't think so, but Steven Strasburg is no longer moving the needle in our hobby. And so, again, my point is, if what we come out of this is buy the product, open it up, and deal with it. And then because Paul Skeens, that value could go from $1 million to $5,000 if something horrible happened to him, or he had, this, and I don't want that to happen. So if the bounty is going to expire at the end of the year, then you're thinking, I need to open it and deal with it right now. And that's what collecting is supposed to be. When I was a kid, last year's cards were junk. It was people only cared about this year's cards when I was a little kid. Yeah. But I told my buddy, I said, well, I actually care about last year's cards. If you're don't put them in the dumpster, I can take them off your hands.
Well, you didn't convince Mookie. He's keeping his 87 Tops rack pack with Gooden on top still sealed. I don't have them necessarily right around me to put on screen, but I do have some sealed wax with like Stars Show, and that's a thing that I don't want to say I collect, but if I pick them up from time to time, I'll keep them kind of that way. I got some like 89 Fleer with Griffey's on top still sealed, that sort of thing. All right, guys, we're up against the hour. We're going a little bit in overtime. We'll kind of finish off with, unfortunately, this past year we lost some big sports names, which obviously again cross over to hobby loss as well, with the most recent one being Ricky Henderson. Prior to that, Pete Rose. If anyone wants to put in the comments some other people we lost, but it wasn't, we lose, obviously, as the years go by, we lose athletes and celebrity every year. This one seemed to be, some big ones especially towards the back half of 2024 with Ricky Henderson, Pete Rose, Logan Ward, Fred Lorenzen, Bobby Allison on the racing side. Any others, we want to throw in here and just kind of pay our last respects to here as we close out the show? Willie Mays, can't forget Willie Mays as
Brooks
well.
Robinson.
Arguably, Brooks Robinson. Willie, it's funny because, not funny, but, Willie Mays, arguably the greatest living ball player before he had passed. And then me and Danny did a show, and I kind of mentioned Ricky Henderson now sort of is in the running for that title, and then he passed away. And so, we're starting to lose some of these guys. And it's always sad, obviously, and it's inevitable, but when it happens, not to bring up, I know Dr. Jim, you lost your parents, and our condolences for that, and we've talked about that. So 2024, obviously not a great year. Buddy Harrelson, Ed Kranepool, Jerry Grote on the Mets front, and we could probably do another 30 minutes. But it's unfortunate, but pay respect. Jerry West, as the comments continue to roll in. So I know this was Orlando said, hey, let's kind of cover it as the kind of, pay our condolences. So Luis Tiat as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of Hall of Famers and Hall of great people as well. So. All right, guys, we're one little over time, first show of the year, but glad to be back. Glad to see everybody in the chat room. Very interactive. We appreciate it, and hopefully scheduling. We've worked out some of those kinks, and we'll see you each Saturday morning.
John, you in the military, they say if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. But in John Newman time, if you're only 5 minutes late, you're on time.
Yeah, we've done 90-minute shows. Now, I'm not saying we're doing that today.
I'm saying you're on your best behavior.
Yes.
Yeah. If me and Rich Klein, this is probably a 90-minute show. So I'll just
Easily.
say that. All right, folks. Dr. Jim, Orlando,
Thanks,
have a
Joe.
great rest of
Thanks,
the
Orlando.
weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for sticking with us. Happy New Year, everybody. Have a great 2025.